If religious people want us to believe in God, then the burden of proof is on them. Not just to prove God exists, but that their particular religion is the right one. They can't do it, mostly because at some level religion relies on faith. But that's never stopped them from trying to make their case for God. So to help them out, I thought I'd do them a favor. Here are 25 arguments they should just stop using because they don't work. Why 25? Well, because this video had to end at some point. The God of the gaps. The argument goes like this. There's something we don't know about the world, therefore God did it. We can't explain every single aspect of evolution, so God must have designed us. We can't explain why a cancer patient survived, so God must have wanted her to live. But just because you don't know everything doesn't mean God has to be the default answer. That's hardly a fair fight. It just shifts our focus from something we don't know to someone we only think we know. It makes about as much sense as responding to "where do rainbows come from?" with "an invisible unicorn farted." That didn't help. You didn't resolve anything. Now I just have more questions. The other problem is that a lot of times we find a natural explanation that makes more sense. Where did we come from? Was a pretty good question that people reasonably attributed to God for a long time because they didn't know any better. Then we found out about evolution and genes and DNA. The gaps got filled. The gaps always get filled eventually, at least when we're talking about something that's possible to figure out. Anyone who uses this argument needs to get comfortable with God becoming a smaller and smaller presence in everyone's lives. The leap of faith. This is when people tell you if you want proof of God, you have to start by taking a leap of faith. Just believe. Then God will prove his existence to you. Somehow. But for anyone to believe God exists, at least the way most Christians see him, just think about all the huge assumptions they're making. Because it's never just a leap of faith to believe in God. It's a lot of leaps. It's like hopping through a canyon. You shouldn't need to jump that much. Think about this. You have to believe there's a supernatural realm to our universe, and that there are beings in that supernatural realm, and that they have consciousness, and that at least one of those beings is eternal, and that this being can create the universe, and that this being can mess with the universe afterwards through miracles and natural disasters, and that this being is all-knowing, all-powerful, and all-loving, and that this being really has strong opinions about you touching yourself. It's hard to imagine any one of those things making sense, but people who want you to believe in God want you to accept all of those things, or maybe a lot more depending on what kind of God or gods they believe in. And that's before we even get into the specifics of their faith, like communion wafers. The coin flip. There are seriously people who think we should believe in God because either he exists or he doesn't. Therefore, it's 50-50. May the odds be with you. That is a seriously distorted version of Pascal's wager, which we will get to later. You might be thinking, no one could possibly make that awful an argument, but I'm not making this up. Here is an example from one priest. What chance is there of God existing? 50-50. After all, either God exists or he doesn't. But if he does, and I believe, then I just won the jackpot. That's not how probability works. I mean, using his own analogy, that's like saying, I'm either going to win the lottery or I won't, so I better play. In fact, let's just assume I'm a multimillionaire. No, not even close. We don't know what the exact odds are of God existing. But when you consider all those leaps of faith we just talked about, they're not good. They're definitely not 50-50. I mean, please stop using this argument and take a statistics class. God is just undetectable. There was a time when people said the gods lived on Mount Olympus, or on a throne in the sky, or in a volcano. But as technology improved, it was easy to show there's nothing in those mountains, and no people in those volcanoes, and nothing floating in the sky. And then people stopped believing that stuff. So what do people say now? God's invisible. He's undetectable. He's outside of space and time. You can't meet him until you're dead. He's quite literally untraceable, which is meant to stop us from even looking. The same thing happens with miracles, by the way. There was a time you could get away with saying God brought a dead man back to life. He helped a paraplegic person walk again. Someone lost an arm, but it grew back. But when we have video cameras readily available on our phones, and doctors who can see what's going on inside of you and in your brain, it's a lot harder to make those bizarre claims. That's why modern miracles are mostly limited to things people have no way of testing. Believers put God out of our grasp on purpose, because if there was any way to test God, their lies would be obvious to everyone. God is intangible. Hey atheists, do you believe in love? Sure you do. But you can't touch it or see it. So checkmate, God works the same way. Except love is not intangible. It's a feeling. If we wanted to, we could literally see our brain acting differently when we're in love. Scientists know the chemicals involved. They know if you had brain damage in a certain area, you wouldn't be able to feel those things. So just because we can believe in things we can't see, doesn't mean they're not there. God isn't like love. God isn't like air. It's not a good analogy. And also, no one's saying not believing in love means you're gonna be tortured for eternity and that your beliefs should dictate our laws. There's something instead of nothing. Why are we here? Because God put us here. Why else would we be here? That's it. That's the argument. Stuff exists, therefore God. But why is that supposed to be convincing? Why couldn't there be stuff without God? It's not like we have another easily accessible universe to compare ours to. Where did this God come from anyway? I mean, wouldn't that be the new question? Saying we're here because God put us here doesn't resolve anything. There had to be a first cause. This is similar to the last one. Our universe began about 13.8 billion years ago when the Big Bang happened. What came before the Big Bang? We don't know. So this argument says something had to cause it, and that cause must be God. But again, how does that help? Who created God? And if someone responds with, well, God is eternal and has always been around, we're right back to square one. That's a cop-out answer. The universe is fine-tuned. There are so many things that had to go right for us to even exist. The precise strength of gravity, the way our planets rotate, the way the Big Bang happened, and the gazillion things that happened a split second later. It all seems so perfect and so precise, and if any of those things were altered, even slightly, perhaps we wouldn't be here. You mean to tell me every important number in physics was just that perfect by coincidence? Yeah, pretty much. The author Douglas Adams had a great response to this. That argument is like seeing a puddle in a hole and thinking, wow, that puddle fits perfectly in the hole. The hole was designed for the puddle. I mean, what are the odds? Like, no. It's more like the puddle just figured out how to fit inside. Same idea with the universe. It wasn't created for us. Everything evolved to fit inside of it the way it does. It just depends on your perspective. If the numbers were altered, maybe we wouldn't be here at all, or maybe our world would have adjusted to the new conditions. Who knows? And by the way, the universe is not fine-tuned anyway. There are black holes and meteors and any number of ways we could be destroyed. There's climate change, which we're only making worse, and all of that is before the sun burns out entirely. So it's not even well designed for us. Beauty exists. Have you looked at a newborn baby? Or seen a landscape from the top of a mountain? Or fallen in love at first sight? It's amazing because of God. Okay, first of all, I have been a witness to 2 live births. Those babies are not pleasant when they come out. But besides that, we decide what's beautiful. If roses didn't look like roses, then either some other flower would represent beauty, or we'd find a new reason to like roses with their sexy thorns. What's beautiful to you might be different for me. There's nothing that is universally adored. And I know this because some of you are downvoting this amazing video as we speak. My holy book said so. The Bible does say God exists. But there are many versions of the Bible which say many different things. And there's a Quran, and the Book of Mormon, and Dianetics, and all of those have very different stories. Why does one holy book count, but not the rest? Just because there are Harry Potter books doesn't mean there's an actual Hogwarts. And whatever reasons you have to ignore everyone else's holy books, they get to use on yours. Your book is not that special. My holy book is historical. Just because the Bible makes references to places that actually exist doesn't make it true everywhere. Stories that get passed down generation after generation are gonna reference real places around where they live. That's why those stories live on. It's why they feel so real. Doesn't mean the stories are accurate. I mean, by that logic, everything in the Iliad, including the intervention of the ancient Greek gods, must also be true. God spoke to me. Whether we're talking about self-described prophets or people who just claim to have had a direct connection to God, their imagination doesn't mean we should take them seriously. People can hallucinate. People can dream. It all seems very real at the time. But even if it was real, so what? There's no way to prove it. To paraphrase Thomas Paine in The Age of Reason, it's only revelation to the first person. It's hearsay for everyone else. And those people have no obligation to take the first person at his word. It's also hilarious that people of one religion are always quick to dismiss the revelations in other religions. I mean, outside of Mormonism, no one believes the story of Joseph Smith and the gold plates. No, really, God spoke to me. What if you had a revelation yourself? You may mean well, you may be sincere. Maybe you were in the hospital and God spoke to you and said things would get better. Let's assume you really think that happened. But that's still not proof. It's been said before, but the plural of anecdote is not fact. If God wants me to believe in him, he can come talk to me himself. He knows where I live. He can subscribe to this channel just like you can. There were ancient miracles. Every religion has its miracle stories. They always happened a long time ago when no one had cameras and no one knew about the scientific method or critical thinking, and we're just supposed to pretend their interpretations are legit. No, I've seen way too much magic to believe in that stuff. There is always a secret, even if we can't figure it out. Also, many things that might have been interpreted as miracles thousands of years ago could be explained with science now. I mean, why have all those miracles stopped? Did God get shy? Or is it because we have better ways of verifying those things? The philosopher David Hume put it like this: is it more likely someone was deceived or is purposely deceiving us, or that an actual violation of physics occurred? We know deception is possible, but you can't violate physics. There are modern miracles. Okay, so Jesus turning water into wine or Jonah living inside of a whale may be far-fetched. But what about miracles today? Going back to the God of the Gaps thing, let's not confuse things we don't understand with things that could only happen with God's intervention. There are stories of dead people coming back to life. But you know what that means? They weren't actually dead. Or the tools we were using to measure their pulse or brainwaves weren't working properly. Those are at least plausible. Faith healers and televangelists are really the worst about this stuff. They claim to perform miracles, but it's not like they ever release medical records of the people they supposedly cure or give us information so we can follow up. If you want to show modern miracles as proof of God, then use the available technology to document it. You should be thrilled people are asking questions because you should be willing to submit that claim to all kinds of scrutiny. Why wouldn't you? What are you afraid of? And just imagine a Jesus-like miracle happening today. It's not like anyone would or should believe it. If someone said they saw a man rise from the dead, you know what your response would be? Pics or it didn't happen. Show me the video. Every miracle needs extraordinary proof. And at a time when it's so easy to manipulate audio and video, you need even more. People have near-death experiences. There have been books written by people who said they were on the verge of death and went to heaven, or saw God, or saw their ancestors. But that doesn't mean anything. We all have vivid imaginations. Our brain can do weird things, especially when we're not healthy. Also, let's recognize why so many of those stories are similar. It's not because they're true. It's because we're all used to those stories. If someone said, I almost died and went to heaven and the angels were playing kazoos, no one would take them seriously because it doesn't match the fictional story we're used to. Pop quiz, what does heaven look like? You might think of angels, harps, clouds, your deceased loved ones greeting you, the pearly gates. Those things aren't real, but we all have similar visions of it because of pop culture and books. It's like aliens. What does an alien look like? Are you thinking of a tiny green creature with big black eyes? Maybe, but that's not because we've seen an alien. It's because that's what we see on TV or in the movies. So if you ever hear someone saying they got abducted, odds are they're gonna describe very Hollywood-esque aliens. Same thing with people who claim to have visited heaven. Or hell, if they're trying to stand out from the crowd. Believing in God is popular. Billions of people believe in God. There's gotta be something to it, right? No, popularity doesn't make something good. Popularity is what gives us Wheel of Fortune and Twilight and Nickelback. Plus, even though most people are religious, they all believe different things. If Muslims ever outnumbered Christians, are evangelicals gonna suddenly convert? People wouldn't die for a lie. What about people who have sacrificed their lives for their beliefs? No one would become a martyr for nothing. Yeah, they would. They do it in cults all the time. Same with religious extremists like the 9/11 bombers. Same with political activists who set themselves on fire. You can get very obsessed with something to the point where you think giving up your life is a valid course of action. It doesn't mean you're right, only that you take your beliefs very seriously. Also, don't do that. It's not a good idea. At least don't take innocent lives down with you. What the hell? The Bible includes embarrassing parts. Some people argue that their holy books include passages that are not flattering, or at least not helpful to their cause. The Bible shows Jesus being angry. It shows that the first people to see the resurrected Jesus were women, whose claims would not have been considered reliable in court at the time. If it was all made up, they say, why include stuff that might make you look bad or less credible? Well, because it actually makes you seem more credible. It's like a stand-up comedian telling self-deprecating jokes. It makes them seem more normal, more believable, more endearing to others. If you want people to like you, tell them an embarrassing story. Don't tell them why you're so perfect. So the inclusion of unlikely Bible passages isn't evidence it's true. I'm not saying the writers purposely stuck things in there for dramatic effect, but presenting heroes as imperfect or stories as complex, is a technique that's been around for thousands and thousands of years. Jesus was mad, bad, or God. I've heard Christian apologists use this one a lot. Given the things he said, Jesus was either a lunatic, a liar, or the Lord. And you wouldn't dare say it's the first two. Nice rhetoric, bad logic. What about legend? What if, after Jesus died, people just started embellishing his story to serve their own needs? Or what if Jesus was just honestly mistaken? What if he really thought he was the Son of God and acted like it, but he wasn't? People might have believed him anyway. I mean, he wouldn't be purposely lying, he wouldn't be crazy, and he definitely wouldn't be God. Those are not the only three options available. We're better off believing. We had to get to Pascal's wager sometime. In short, this is the idea that you should believe in God because there's so much to gain from it, like eternal life, and nothing to lose if you're wrong. But if you reject God and you're wrong, you are so screwed. But that's not how it works. I'm an atheist. Do you want me to just go through the motions to appease God? And if I did, wouldn't God know I'm faking it? And nothing to lose, really? Because I have a lot to lose by believing. I'm losing time by praying. I'm losing money if I belong to a church. I'm losing friends if I belong to a weird church. But let's say I am wrong, since that's the doomsday scenario, right? What if I don't believe and it turns out God exists? What's going to happen? Well, I die and God has to judge me. Well, guess what, God? I made a sincere attempt at looking for you. I didn't find you. I was always open to the possibility, though. What sort of God would punish me forever after an honest search for truth? There are so many people out there who never think about this stuff. I mean, seriously, thank you for watching this video because most people never would. It makes no sense for God to save his wrath for the people who took God so seriously that they wanted to be sure about their beliefs instead of blindly following everyone else. I'll take my chances that that is the wiser way to go. Morality requires God. This is such a bad argument because even Christians can't figure out what's moral. They hold wildly different positions on masturbation, premarital sex, divorce, contraception, abortion, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, stem cell research, euthanasia, the death penalty, war, politics. You get the idea? God didn't help them sort any of those things out. And yet religion is supposed to be the arbiter of morality? Come on now. Religious Americans are some of the most immoral people in the country because their desires often hurt so many people. And if you need God to tell you hurting other people is a bad idea, then I hope you keep believing. Some of us don't need that crutch to figure out the obvious. I think Matt Dillahunty said this well in response to someone saying, without God, we'd all be raping and murdering all the people we want. He said something like this: I do rape and murder all the people I want, because that number is 0. How many people would you rape and murder if you didn't think anyone was watching? Religious people pick and choose their ethics just like everyone else. And sometimes it leads them to the Inquisition, the Salem witch trials, homophobia, 9/11, Donald Trump. Any decent ethical system should not need supernatural justification for it. If you need God to be good, you're a bad person. Having a purpose requires God. What's the point of life if God's not involved? This implies that atheists are just walking around with no purpose, ever. Of course, that's not true. We have a purpose that we create for ourselves. Maybe we dedicate ourselves to our families, our careers, leaving this world a better place for the next generation, whatever it is. But we're lucky to be alive. We know it's temporary. So let's make the most of it. I would argue most religious people do the exact same thing. They just stick God in that explanation. They don't need the middleman. Just cut him out and everything will be fine. And if you're living just to honor and worship God, you're not really living. God gives us access to the afterlife. We have to believe in God because that's the only way to get into heaven. Why do I need an afterlife? What's wrong with this one? There's an analogy I've heard about this that I love. Suppose you could only afford to go to Paris once in your life. Would you refuse to go because you couldn't go again? I hope not. Well, right now we are all living in Paris. It's great. Let's enjoy it. The fact that we won't get to live life again doesn't make this one any less sweet. Don't live this life in order to get a better next life. God's existence makes me happy. Some people will say I am a better, happier person because I believe in God. That's nice, but I'm a better and happier person after my second cup of coffee in the morning. It doesn't mean you need to inject yourself with caffeine. What works for you may not work for others. And just because your delusions make you happy doesn't mean your imagination represents reality. There are people who will say they feel really good after doing drugs. Don't take that as an endorsement. So there you go. 25 bad reasons to believe in God. This is the first in a 37-part series I'm making about God's existence, and I am just kidding. But if you think I missed some really powerful arguments that deserve rebuttals, leave them in the comments below and I will try to discuss them in a future video. And by the way, this list was adapted from a document created by August Berkshire, a longtime atheist activist and a personal friend, so many thanks to August for the help.